Hey everybody, I am Tonya Meisenbach, also known as Burn Beauty 2018, and this is my daily vlog. I am a 6-year burn survivor, almost 6 years in December, and I was set on fire by my husband, who I believe to be a narcissist. I mean, textbook if you are going by all the information that is flooding social media these days, and obviously a sociopath. He is also a sex offender from his college years, and I don't know if there's anything else to find out about him, if he's committed any other crimes or whatever. I worry about it, but that's nothing I can control. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do. Click the button. Those are my play buttons back there. I hit 100,000 followers about 10 days ago, and we're at 125,000 subscribers now. Of course, I'm being a weirdo. This is not a cooking channel, but my new Wolfgang, no, that's Emerald, my new Emerald oven is so dope. I just got it yesterday. I didn't want the vlog to turn into something that was only talking about him. I still feel angered. Actually, I don't feel anger anymore. It's so amazing. Since I got out of the house, I mean, I want justice, but I'm not outrageously angry. But I didn't want the vlog to turn into something about him, because that's what he wants everything to turn into. But I do want to talk about it because I think it can help someone else. You know, for me, my hindsight is 2020, but I hope to help somebody else's foresight. I didn't know, I didn't understand emotional abuse. I'd heard the term, but I'd never heard narcissistic abuse. And if you had asked me what a narcissist was, I would say someone who really loves themselves, from what I know of narcissists, but it's really someone who really hates themselves. And they hate you for being what they can never be. And they go around just wreaking havoc on everyone, every path they cross, and they often choose very accomplished, intelligent, empathetic people, but they early on find out what your weakness is, like how did you grow up, what's your trauma, what's your story, because they'll bond with you. Oh, they've been through that too. But really, they're just, banking that for when they want to control you emotionally. So, I knew what physical abuse was, and I wouldn't have stayed around for that. He knew that, I knew that. But, I'd already given him all the information to work with. When you're being open and honest and having a heart-to-heart conversation, you don't think you're giving them ammunition, but you are. And this is something I definitely had to work through. It's like, how in the world? Because in retrospect, he is so not intelligent. I'm looking at it, and he's just like a toddler, a 50-year-old toddler. That's a problem. And he's someone who will do the silent treatment. If you try to talk to him, he'll literally have his bottom lip stuck out. I really thought it was a joke. And I didn't have time to deal with it. I had a life. I was trying to run the business that he constantly calls his, but he never ran, because he would always be out in the bar. I was trying to run the house, and I was trying my best to take care of my kids, who were just my life. In retrospect, it's like, whoa, red flag, red flag. But I didn't get it. He would do messed up things, and when I got angry about them, he'd be like, why are you angry about it? It's the past. And it could have been like an hour ago. Get over it. Get over it. I mean, literally had no comprehension of the fact that he is so broken, and just continuing to belittle you. And at some point you start to think, am I overreacting? What is happening? Because you start to get angrier and angrier, because there's no place for that anger to live. When you express your unhappiness, it is met with you are invalidated for it. So right there, they're yelling at you. They're telling you there's something wrong with you. They'll tell you, oh, you're crazy. Um, just, oh, you need to get help. He literally was having a temper tantrum because I had a problem with him and his friend, who I 100% know now was a boyfriend. That's probably for another video. He was a coworker, but they literally spent every minute of every day together. They went shopping. The guy was dressing him. How could I not, like, that's screaming, red flag, red flag. What are you doing? There was a big snowstorm, and this guy, he spent he made sure not to make it home so he could spend the night with that guy because it was his birthday. It was craziness. I'm kind of rambling, but I hope that if you're listening and you're questioning your relationship, or questioning what's going on, or questioning your sanity, you can take something from this, because this is a man who was physically very dangerous and ended up trying to kill me, even though he can't even, like, he literally can't even do anything right. You know? I mean, there's no way that the good Lord was going to let him do that. You know? There's no way he was going to let it happen. Um, there's no way my angels were going to let it happen. But it was very dangerous. So it goes from putting everything and everybody above you, having fits about his laundry isn't done. Well, go effing wash it. I'm doing everything. He literally expected me to take care of him, and he was never once a husband. So all these things really start to run in your mind. Do you have someone in your life who's saying that you're not doing enough, you're not good enough, but they're not doing anything? The business ran um, because there were good people. I was running the office. There was someone running the crew because it's a tree company. There were salesmen who are very hardworking, but he's off, with his boyfriend at the bar all day. And I say that I have reasoned through it and thought it through, and everything there indicated such. But I couldn't see it. I couldn't believe it. It sounds like it's hard to say some of these things. It's embarrassing, but I hope, again, that it helps someone who's dealing with something similar. Because if somebody's doing the least and mad at you because you're not doing enough at the most, they're toxic at a minimum. And those things are covertly yelling at you and screaming at you and abusing you. And that's what emotional abuse, is. Or somebody's doing the least and mad at you because you're not doing enough at the most, they're toxic at a minimum. And those things are covertly yelling at you and screaming at you and abusing you. You get dressed up, all dressed up, and they don't say a single word to you about how you look. And then you get, like, this actually happened. I get all dressed up. We're going out to dinner with a business colleague and his wife. And the colleague's wife walks up and he's like, "Oh my God, you look so beautiful." I mean, it's not right. He never once say, "Hey, you look pretty." And I never thought I was good enough. And he wasn't kind. I had a flat tire at the time that he had the boyfriend guy who passed away, by the way. And there were people at the time questioning him, like, "Are you sleeping with John?" But he never would answer it. Anyway, so at the time that boyfriend guy's around, they were heavily using drugs. He told me he wasn't, but I know that guy was a heavy, heavy drug user. That's why he passed away, from the damage he did to his body. So he was a really heavy drug user, and they would spend the day together. My Escalade kept getting a flat tire. There was something wrong with it. It was sitting in the driveway. I was like, "Can you change my tire?" And, "Well, you better call a tow truck, right?" It's like, okay. And then I think it was the same day or a couple of days later. I had to get my car towed out of my driveway. The tow truck driver looked at me like I was ridiculous. So I was like, yeah, my husband didn't do it. And he just looked at me like I was crazy. A couple of days later, we're going to the mall, and there's a girl trying to change her tire in the parking lot, just a random stranger. We drive by, and then we turn back. Oh, no, I got to do the right thing. I got to do the right thing. That's how unwell these people are. They only do the right thing in public, and in private, they are abusing you. All these things are abuse. It changes the way you feel about yourself. You become embarrassed. You don't want to tell anybody about these things, and I didn't. You start to isolate because they're jerks when you do anything. They are going to ruin every holiday, every vacation, and they're going to tell you that you ruined it with your response to your reaction to their action. You always ruin everything when in fact they did something to ruin it every time. They are changing the way you feel. They are changing the way you communicate with people. It is causing you to isolate because, right now I feel very vulnerable saying these things that he did that I rationalized and made it okay. It was always, well, he drinks too much and he needs to stop drinking. And when in reality, he was drinking and doing drugs, and I don't do illicit drugs. I never have. I had no idea that he was doing these things, and he would do them behind my back. And that's likely why he had to disappear so many times, turn off his phone and disappear, because he had to go live another life. And he had to go do it with other women. When he pretended to be so faithful and tell his family, he's there for me and so faithful. I mean, every single breath is a lie. I believe that he had one of our chippers stolen. He disappeared for 2 days straight with his phone off on some kind of binge with some kind of woman. Probably, like prostitute, because that's all he was ever going to get. A prostitute or somebody who was on drugs that, he had the money to buy the drugs. So, and this is all in retrospect. I did not know at the time. He's disappeared for 2 days, and one of the chippers disappeared. We have a tree company. They're expensive. I think he believed them to be insured because and they should have been, but there was a gap or something in the policy, and they weren't. So it got stolen. I had to handle it, because he wasn't available. Nobody could get in touch with him. He's the owner of the company, is what he would always say. If you ask him, he's the owner, but he's not around when, anything happens. So it gets stolen, and the next morning he comes home. I mean, literally morning, like 7 or 8 a.m. He's coming home, or maybe probably after checkout time at the hotel he was at and lied about. You know, I located his vehicle, and it said it was near like a Comfort Inn, which near the office, and he was like, "No, I was just passed out on the side of the road." I mean, tall tales. He was just passed out drunk on the side of the road, and no policeman came by in Atlanta, Georgia. You know, and deep down you don't believe it, but you have to believe it in order to make it make sense, in order for it to be okay for you to stay. And during that time, I've located him. He comes home the next day. The thing is stolen. And then he's like, I got to go out looking for it. Really, probably there's a problem with his other woman or prostitute. I mean, there was one that I think was a regular, but she was only there for the drugs. And now I know this, because in my mind, I can see it now, and really I'm just starting to see it within the past few days. But he's like, I got to go back out and look for it, drive around and look for it. No, he's going right back out to do more drugs and go back to his prostitute. He literally tells me, that he rented a helicopter from the airport, or the local airport, to fly around Atlanta and look for it. So effing crazy. So effing crazy. If you have somebody in your life telling tall tales, they are toxic. They are likely a narcissist. And I'm not an expert on this. I'm not a mental health professional, but I have lived it for 20 years. And I want everyone to know that this kind of craziness and chaos in your life is not normal, and it is not without consequence and harm, because they're very unstable people. They don't know how to regulate their emotions. They don't have empathy. They don't even know what that is, um, because they only think of themselves. They want to see you fail. They want to push you down in order to lift themselves up. And he kept pushing and pushing and pushing me down, but it never worked. And when he finally got into enough of a drug and alcohol fueled state or rage, he set me on fire. I ran. We were going to make a steak, and we were by a fire pit, and I remembered that part, and thought, okay, well, maybe it was an accident. I mean, that's what he said. No reason to lie, right? Except everything he's ever said to me was a lie. But I couldn't see that then. Hard to say these things. I didn't see it then, because I've spent all these years believing he's passed out on the side of a road near the hotel, and that he's flying around in a helicopter looking down for a chipper that's about the size of a car. Yeah, that's crazy. It's embarrassing. But ultimately he chased me as I ran, squirting lighter fluid, and then he threw a Zippo at me. I just bought it a month before, after renewing our vows, and he threw it at me and set me on fire. In my text that I still have, from 2018, never delete your text. We had been arguing for weeks, and we always argued because he always created chaos. But it was getting really intense. And there's a point where I'm like, I don't even want to renew my vows. Like, before it happened, I was just like, I'm just done with you. I'm sick of you. The kids had moved out, or were moving out that month, and I was just sick of him. So I didn't realize how dangerous that could be, because I didn't even know that I was suffering emotional abuse, right? So you can see my text, and you can see us arguing. You can see him say, I thought things were going to be different after we renewed our vows, even though he disappeared in Geneva 2 nights after we renewed our vows, left me to go to the hotel and went to some kind of rave 2 days after we renewed our vows. But, a few weeks later, he's like, I thought things were going to be different, implying that I was the problem. My reaction was the problem. I thought it was going to be better. I thought you were going to stop getting upset when I do horrible things, And he really meant that. So the argument in the text goes back and forth. And at 5:43 p.m. on December 18th, I sent my final text talking about a guy that had called him that I knew to be like a junkie. He didn't reply because he got home within a few minutes of that. And he said, let's go outside and talk, and because he always wanted to sit by the fire pit and smoke and drink and stuff. And at 8:09 p.m., there was the 911 call that I had been burned. The only reason he put me out is because I ran and I got to the side yard where, who knows if the neighbors are looking, because I had screamed. I remember actually telling him to dial 911. I can, these memories are hard to speak about sometimes, but I can remember him backing up against the side of the house with his eyes all big and freaked out, like, what have I done? And me telling him to dial 911 because he's such a child. He couldn't even figure that out. Today is, I don't know what today is. Today is November 24th, 2024. And those are my thoughts for the day. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. And there's a series of videos where I tell the whole story um, of all this chaos that is my life. And if you've been watching the whole time and wondering and you don't know me, this little loaf of bread here is a tissue expander that is soon, within the next few weeks, going to make a forehead flap. And that forehead flap is eventually going to make a new nose for me because the tip of my nose was burned off, and that's the only way to fix it. I'm very blessed and very happy, and I love y'all. Remember that whatever you're going through, this too shall pass.